Well, welcome to the program. Welcome back. It is, of course, let's see, what time? 8:27. I'm a few minutes early. That happens so rarely. Don't tell anyone, of course. Now time for our weekly edition of St. Maarten Insights, news that matters to you. My good buddy Emil Lee is in the studio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Sock. Good morning, listeners. Great to be here again.
And we have a very special guest. I think might be the first time, I'm not entirely sure, our Member of Parliament, the Honorable Omar Ottley, in the studio. How are you, sir? Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Thank you guys for having me. Definitely my first time, and I love it here. I love the setup, and I
I
love
think
how you
it's the
greet
first time anybody from your party even. I don't
No,
I don't
no,
know.
no. Rolando has been in.
Yeah?
Former MP Rolando Bryson has been in
Okay.
a number of times, but I don't think anybody else in the current lineup. So,
See, see? First time for everything,
There
right?
you go. There
We're
you
happy
go.
to
Hope,
happy
I hope
to
the
have you.
tea is okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect.
I tried.
It's perfect.
I tried. So, Emil, where do we start?
So I have a couple questions to
Mhm.
kind of get us started. So you've been obviously making some rounds. I've watched some of your interviews and discussions about GB.
Mhm.
And as we all know, there's a real push to lower the tariffs, in particular for electricity.
Correct.
So, but I have a couple of questions to kind of frame our discussion. So I did manage to get a copy of the two reports. So there's one report that the government of St. Martin commissioned,
Correct.
and then there's another report that GB itself commissioned. And it's interesting to read the two reports. But one question, so a few questions to start. If the tariff for GB is set too low,
Mhm.
it creates a problem for GB
Mhm.
in that they won't have sufficient revenues to maintain their infrastructure and to put money aside to invest for the future.
Correct.
You agree?
Correct.
Okay. If the tariff is too high, it's also a problem in that it means that money's being taken from the people, that it's being sucked out of the community, and that's a problem.
Correct.
Well, that's money for investment.
Less money for investment for all kinds of things. And so we've looked at some of the rates around the Caribbean, right? Curacao, we did a quick calculation before we came on air, is about 39 cents per kilowatt hour. Saba is about 37 cents. Statia is about 39 cents. Bonaire is about 36 cents. And St. Martin, we're about 34, 30.
I looked at my last set of bills and I just said, okay, cost per kilowatt hour about 34 cents, 35 cents a kilowatt hour.
Okay.
Now,
All in.
that said, worldwide, the average is 16 and a half cents. So if you look around the world, right? But then you're talking about when you have a mixture of wind, solar, nuclear energy, hydroelectric, so those are dams that produce electricity based on, water flow. So you have a whole different set of power generations, not one plant that's dependent on fossil fuels. So, I mean, so 16 and a half cents, the worldwide average is, I think, unrealistic unless we consider going to something like nuclear, right? Then that's a discussion. But so just to try and set the public's expectations, right? When we're talking about a decrease, you're not talking about half. You're not talking about, that's just not realistic.
Correct.
Framed against the other islands who are in a similar situation to us, who have rates currently similar to us, what do you think is a realistic number that doesn't put GB in a financial, bind?
Strain.
Yeah.
So the thing about it is, I'm glad that we started directly with the tariffs and the base rate.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Sock said he calculated he has about 35 cents. And in actuality, it went from 28 cents to 25, right? Supposed to be about around that. So
The base rate.
Yeah, the base rate.
So that's before the fuel clause.
And this is why I say the problem that we have, right, is not necessarily the base rate. Because when the base rate went from 28 to 25, the effects was not really felt. And I spoke to the initiator, the one who did it, and they were like, they faced backlash because the effects were not felt. The problem we have is the fuel clause. The fuel clause, because most people that I speak to, when they review their bills, their consumption rate, they find pretty fair.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, is based on what we speak about your base rate tariff being in line with majority of the Caribbean, of the islands, of the nations. But our fuel clause calculation has caused a lot of complications within our community. And most of the times you look, right, you have, for instance, a bill of 200 gillas for your consumption and your fuel clause of 500 gillas.
Mm-hmm.
True.
And then in studying this, I have really studied this in and out. Met with lawyers, met with ex management board members, and really understand the essence of GEBE and where the problem stems from.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem stems from not having a properly functioning power plant, because that's your base.
Mm-hmm.
And for instance, Emil, if I may, the fuel clause in the report is calculated based on, according to the report, the price of fuel,
Mm-hmm.
whether international market up, down,
Mm-hmm.
plus, this is where the problem comes in, plus the lubricants,
Mm-hmm.
divided by the total net sales. But then you remove 7C's sales,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then you remove your own consumption.
Mm-hmm.
A properly functioning plant, their consumption rate supposed to be between 1 and 3% your own consumption. What happens is we don't have a properly functioning plant. It's not a secret. Your consumption rate increases.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a question that I have to ask. What now is your consumption rate? So I say this by telling St. Martin, just make it as simple as possible. The bigger number, the top number, if it's 100, the bottom number, which is your net sales that you're taking things out of, if the bottom number is smaller, right, the end result is bigger. If I have 100 divided by 10, it's 10. If I have 100 divided by 2, it's 50.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, your fuel clause becomes bigger.
So
Mhm.
I'm looking at the formula,
Mhm.
and in there they refer to also 8.5% fixed rate net loss.
Mhm.
And I couldn't figure out, and I'm pretty good at math and science
Thank
and everything, but I couldn't figure out. I read the whole report.
Mhm.
What is the 8.5% fixed rate loss? Do you?
I have no idea. This is the reason why.
That's in the fuel clause. That's the
Yes.
part of the fuel clause.
Yeah.
Can I
Yes.
see that?
Yes. And that's what I'm and what we had a recent debate in Parliament. And if you listen carefully, first of all, I'd like to clarify something, right? I did not call the Prime Minister a liar. I said stop lying to the people. Take it as you may, stop lying to the people. Because let me explain, Emil. Like you said, you're good with math.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to say, if you look at a GB bill that Sol gives to GB, a bill, right? And Dr. Sock has the breakdown right there. And I just, out of my head, I know this so good. You're going to see three items: heavy fuel, diesel, and lubricants.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to give you a unit price, 0.8, 0.7, whatever the unit price is at that moment. And then they're going to tell you the quantity that GB ordered, and then they're going to multiply it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're just going to give you a price. So on that, it has a total price. It says taxes, 0. It says freight, 0. Hear me well. Freight, 0. So it looks like you're just being charged. And what I'm saying, and I told the Prime Minister, and quote, I know that you are saying it's not supposed to be, but do your job and ensure that it is not happening, because the base rate has to come from somewhere. Now, if you look at that breakdown, you see something called freight in that breakdown of the pricing. Hence the reason, but on the bill to GEBE, it says freight cost 0.
So let's back all the way up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the idea of the fuel clause actually makes sense.
Yes.
In that you have a power plant, you have a company that produces your electricity and your water. Their only variable cost that they can't control is their fuel, right? Because it's dependent on worldwide supplies.
Mm-hmm.
So if they had to just give you a flat electricity price, they would have to price it high in order to be able to accommodate, the fluctuations in fuel price, right? So the original concept that you say, we're going to make the fuel price variable, we're going to make the fuel price variable so that in the end it's supposed to be more fair to the consumer.
Correct.
Right? So the idea makes sense. But the problem is I can't recalculate the fuel clause. Like if I try and take the variables and try and figure out, I can't figure out that number. So it's not reproducible to the community, which is a problem. It means it's not transparent, and it gives the opportunity for all kinds of things to get buried in there.
Correct.
And I think that's one of the things I see in the report is that there needs to be more transparency about it. And perhaps there should be an independent body that actually checks it and verifies it. Maybe like a BTP or somebody that, because the board actually they're supposed to ensure that GB functions optimally and that it makes money. They actually don't have any obligations to the public to ensure that GB is operating cost-wise as efficiently as possible to the public, right? That's
Correct.
Their task as board is to make sure the company performs well,
Correct.
right? The fact that generators were old and didn't work and broke down, I mean, that's a problem. So there's a question mark for the board there.
Well,
right?
it's an issue of management.
Yeah.
It's a management issue.
And board, right?
Yeah.
The board is supposed to check the management, right?
Yes, correct.
But there's nobody in that structure who's looking out for the public. And that's a big problem, right?
And the first thing you said, let's go back to the first thing you said was, it's hard to set a base rate because of the fluctuating price of fuel and they use the worldwide market.
Right.
And then this is my big question. Based on research, the price of crude oil is steadily decreasing. I did the research and I have here on in 2024, the base rate of a crude oil was up to 120, and in June 2022 it was up to 120, and it drops, as you see, 94 in 2023, 85 in 2024, again it went to 74, and right now it's about 63. So $63.45 a barrel of crude oil. We're seeing a steady decrease in the market, but we're seeing a steady increase in our fuel clause.
Right.
And the reason is you hit the nail on the head for the last part. A non-properly functioning plant. The generators are down, increase of maintenance. So what happens is the generators are required to perform and produce a certain amount of energy. And when you have issues, the number one issue that we hear is crankshaft and cylinder issues. These are
which are major
issues, right? And these operate on the basis of whether you're operating on fuel, clean, proper fuel. And when you have a crankshaft issue, 90% of the time is sludge.
So one of the things, just so the listeners understand, the report says heavy fuel is cheaper
than diesel,
but it creates more maintenance issues because what you're saying is there's more buildup, there's more stuff in the engine, and that might actually be part of the reason that you have some of these major maintenance issues.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
And with the major maintenance issues, which we have been faced for the past, especially the past 2 to 3 years, right, and not including 2024 especially, that is an increase in what you call your lubricants. Okay, so what we are being charged for is basically the extra maintenance, and that's why I started by saying a good plant supposed to run, right, basically 98% on efficiency and 2% on their own efficiency. But when our plant runs higher than that, why are we, the people, being charged for the excess?
Right.
Because every company also, Emil, as you would know, and Dr. Sack, you have a miscellaneous budget. But the miscellaneous budget in GB is the people of St. Martin.
Right.
And that's the problem.
So let me ask.
I did a little number crunching just to put this in perspective. When you look at I took my total bill,
Mm-hmm.
and the last bill that I just got for the radio station, and the fuel clause charges,
Mm-hmm.
fuel clause were 55% of the total bill,
Mm.
and versus my actual consumption.
See?
So that's a huge problem. And over the years we've heard so many things that I'm not sure that I can believe how we're actually calculating the fuel clause, because I've heard things like this has been the government's balance, checkbook, the way they balance the checkbook.
Mhm.
We need to build the causeway. That all of a sudden there was a throughput fee put in, right? I've heard all of these things, and part of me almost goes, given the fluctuation and what you just talked about in the free market, I'd much rather have somebody try and manage via options and other strategies the cost of fuel. We probably don't have the skills to do it here, right?
Mhm.
But manage the cost of fuel by by hedging your cost and your portfolio over time, and eliminate the fuel clause
Mhm.
by simply managing the cost, given the long-term trajectory has been down.
Decline.
Then all of a sudden, my bill drops by half, or okay, maybe by 30%,
30%.
because I'm not having to deal with all of the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I keep coming back to, that it should not be this complicated. Any resident of this island should be able to pick up their GB bill and understand every line in it and know where the charge is. And so far, let's see, energy consumption. The first 900 kilowatt hours were at 0.25 guilder cents a kilowatt, 225 guilders. Then I had, 900 kilowatts, at 0.25. That was the second bit. Then the first 221 at 0.23. That's 50 guilders. So I've consumed, roughly 300 plus 275 guilders worth of electricity, but my bill is 693 guilders.
See?
Something that people are angry.
And that's why I say, Dr. Sak, you are 100% correct. And if you have, like anyone that has been listening, in October 2020, October 29, 2024, I had a motion for GB relief. On June 2025, I said we have a bigger problem. I did a motion for fuel relief. And I realized the issue starts at the top. Sol is the only provider of fuel. Sol has a business. Sol has to also operate optimal. Where there's charges, there's fees. Okay? It's no secret.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked a couple of things. One, for the government of St. Maarten to ensure that no TOT is being transferred. That was in my first motion. To ensure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get to the report. And then my second motion says to grant Sol a TOT exemption for fuel sold to GBE. And the second point is for government to review the possibilities of removing their TOT and their own price fuel buildup. One.
Which means
Yes.
Government makes less money.
Yes.
Right? So government's strapped for cash, so they're obviously reluctant to do
it.
Right?
But my thing is, and I often refer to not my words, the words of one of the leaders in the coalition. When the motion was brought, she said, the chair lady of parliament, and I quote, "It is redundant to put that in the motion because it's illegal." I didn't say this. I am not. It's illegal. And then my question was, and I used the video, so it's not me making this up.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is then, if it's illegal, why is the government doing it?
What's illegal, just to be clear?
When I had that to businesses to transfer TOT. Now, it's again, it's not my words. I put it in the motion stating for the Minister of Finance to ensure that businesses are not transferring their TOT onto the consumer. Okay?
And it was when you say that, you mean there can't be a little line item that says the bill was $50. Here's the 5% TOT at the
is
bottom.
added. But
It's got to be embedded in your price.
well, in reality,
Mm.
right? In proper,
Mm.
we all are businessmen, right? In proper business ethics, it's not even supposed to be embedded in your price, right? It's supposed to. When it was designed as what you make, this is your 5%. Okay, so of course, to have a line item is extremely worse. Okay. Number two, we know business 101, and you set it on the dot. If I have to pay it, I'm going to embed it in my price. That's logic. Okay.
That's
we
business.
can all agree this is business. Thank you for that. We'll get back to that same point. But the government has it as a line item. And I'm going to pull the picture up for you to see so that we are not saying I'm making anything up. The government, you have right here in the fuel price build-up for wholesalers. You have turnover tax. I'm showing it to you. And then look at the bottom. You have it again for consumers. There you go, Dr. Sock. You can review.
I
So my thing is, now you are seeing it. It's point blank in the fuel buildup for wholesalers and then consumers.
You know what? I have to say, government regularly does things that private sector is not allowed to do. I mean, like when I was in government and they have these interim secretary generals, I'm like, you know, in private sector, you can't have interim employees.
Correct.
So, I mean, they constantly do stuff.
You either work here or you don't.
Right, exactly.
And then I say,
for years.
And then I say, you're correct, Emil, when you say the government makes money on this, right?
Yeah.
So for them to remove it, we're going to lose revenue.
Right.
But then I say, if something is illegal, it's just like a drug dealer, he can make money, but I don't mean it's legal. So again, if it's illegal, according to their words, then the government should not do it. Now they're making to the tune of 22 million, so they don't want to remove it. And my thing is that, where does the 22 million come from, Dr. Sock?
Well, the taxpayer's pocket.
Our pocket.
Well, listen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any revenue that the government gets comes from the taxpayers, and government's job is not to run our lives, but to create a fair playing field for all to live by, and to do it as cost effectively as possible. And we have a huge government apparatus, and as a consequence of that, right now we have to generate more revenue to pay for that big government apparatus. Let me do this. Let me take a quick commercial break. It's 8:49. More with Member of Parliament, the Honorable Omar Ottley. Welcome back to the program. Of course, we have just a few minutes left, so let's jump right back into it. St. Maarten Insights news that matters to you with Emil Lee and the Honorable Omar Ottley. Emil, take it away.
So I found it very interesting when I was reading the report because besides what the report says, there was things that were blacked out or what they call redacted.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the idea is that there may be trade proprietary information. For example, if Sol's price, wholesale price for diesel fuels in here, I could imagine they wouldn't want competitors to know that, right? But there's a sentence here that caught my attention. It says, this means that the revenues from the fuel clause were approximately, and then blacked out, higher than the actual fuel costs, which is not in line with the principle of cost orientation and cost causality, which means that GB made X amount of money by having a higher fuel clause than was actually necessary to pay for the fuel.
There you go.
And then that number's blacked out, which I don't consider a trade secret. I understand that it might be embarrassing. So the fact that you blacked it out means it's probably not a small number.
Thank you.
And can you as MP not focus on that and say, look, tell us, because whatever that number is could have come, actually could still, because that was a profit that you made off fuel. You could use that money to come back as a reduction in fuel to give that overcharge back to the people, right?
Yeah. And there's a part in the report that says we paid an excess of $12.6 million from 2022 to 2024. The public of St. Maarten paid an excess of $12.6 million.
Guilders.
Yeah. Now, all of that is why I say, when I say relief, and people say how, I mean, the report is there. There's an excess charge. There's an excess amount that you made. So what have you been doing? Because while you have had maintenance issues, we are paying for your maintenance issues. So we are not only paying for your maintenance issues, we have been overcharged by whatever they decided to black out, right? That amount. And then on top of that, coming up to an excess of about 12.6.
So we're running tight on time. A few quick questions. Do you have any idea what we know the power generation is an issue. Off air, you mentioned they haven't even ordered the new generators as yet.
No.
Do you have any idea what is the condition of the network, the electricity and water distribution network? Is there any independent assessment of the condition of those?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. It could be.
So that's an issue as
well.
But
I know that, for instance, and as you would know, Minister Vesari were in charge of water production. So in negotiations with Seven Seas, I realized that too, there was not a lot of checks and balances over that aspect. And now the same thing with Sol. So according to a lot of the recommendations, we need to basically now step in, have an independent body, ensure that we are not being overcharged, because the price is going from Gibi and Sol directly to the consumer who has an agreement. There's nothing in there to say, hey, this is correct, this is not correct, this is exaggerated or anything of the sort. So there needs to be a lot of checks and balances.
So I think that's one thing that's very clear in the reports. We need a third party entity to oversee both the performance and condition of the utilities and also about the rates that are being charged.
Yes, correct.
So sort of a left field question. One of our big issues worldwide is our dependence on fossil fuel. There's a lot of improvements in technology for nuclear power. Has there at least been a consideration about, a nuclear power plant would take us off the whole trajectory of issues with fossil fuel and price fluctuations? Has there at least been a discussion and evaluation of that possibility?
Well, I can say from my side, and members of Parliament, no. And I read to you a line in my October 29th motion. It says, to ensure renewable energy is not neglected, instruct GB to present a renewable energy plan within 3 months, whereby the relevant minister will be able to be asked to return to present such. That was in October. Okay. Nothing. And, this is why I stated that as a member of Parliament, even though I'm in opposition, as I read, we're strapped for time, but I read where I have tried to offer solutions. I have not just beat on the government, beat on GB. I have offered solutions, you know. And we recently even did a town hall meeting in Sucker Garden, very, very well attended, you know. And we have a petition where a lot of the recommendations are there. And what we need is clear timelines, Emil. We have been told July, now July, and then July went, come, no relief. And then we are being told maybe December.
So just to, again, set public expectations, you know, when you talk about reductions in electricity prices, some people think, you know, it's going to be half. It's going to be, you know, you want to throw out a non-committal, what's your target number per kilowatt hour?
Well, what I want to do basically is target the it says for the fuel clause, because it used to only reflect the price of fuel on the market. So I don't want to disrupt your formula, but I want to make it fair.
But for the
Remove
consumer,
the
we're
lubricant.
about 34, 35 cents.
Okay,
What's your target?
I could tell you the percentage. So I want to reduce by a minimal of 25%.
Ooh.
That's what I would like to do.
Just the fuel clause piece of it, or the
Yeah,
whole.
the whole
the kilowatt
entity.
price.
Well,
the whole thing.
yeah. So what I think by the mechanisms that we'll put to remove the lubricant aspect from your fuel clause, to adding, just two things can do that: removing the lubricant aspect and adding an oversight body to ensure that the prices are within fair market. Because as you can see, what is redacted there is saying that there's a quote unquote high, low, we don't know, they took it out, amount that is above the actual value that it's supposed to be.
So your target is about 26 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
All in.
All in. And it's very, 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 very much possible with the removal of the lubricant and oversight.
I'm going to do some homework.
That's going to be tough.
We'll do some number crunching. MP, I can't thank you enough for coming. Please, listen, now that you've been here, the tea is good. If you come on a Tuesday or Thursday, next door always brings us croissants, so the coffee.
The conversation's lively.
Yeah, so please come back anytime. The door is always open.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. Of course, the Member of Parliament, the Honorable Omar Ottley, and of course, Emil Lee, our Managing Editor of Caribbean Broadcasting Network News, the host of St. Maarten Insights, news that matters to you. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. It is just 9 a.m. right here in the Northeast Caribbean. Your marine and tropical weather update is coming next. Brought to you by K Beach Club and Restaurant. K like character.